I remember the exact moment I realized my marriage was a lie. It wasn't some dramatic event like catching Barbara in bed with another man, even though that eventually happened in its own way. No, it was far more ordinary. A run-of-the-mill phone call from a hospital bed, my leg in traction, tubes in my lungs, and a dull, throbbing pain that reminded me with every breath that I was inches away from my own mortality. "Hey, honey, doctors say I'm stable now, but I'll be out for a while. Don't worry about getting here today, but maybe tomorrow. Bring Gage if you can. It's not a pretty sight, but I'd like to see you both." My voice shook more from the meds than fear, but there was a real edge of desperation in it. I'd spent 3 days in the hospital after a support beam fell on me at work. My leg was crushed, 2 ribs broken, and a punctured lung that nearly ended me. I was disoriented, drugged up, and clinging to any tether of normalcy. Barbara's reply: "Gas is pricey. You're not worth the drive right now. Die fast or heal quick. I'm sick of the in-between." She actually said that, word for word. The stark cruelty took a full second to register. I thought she was joking, but then I heard laughter in the background, an airy giggle that sounded nothing like the woman I married. Her phone must have been on speaker because out of nowhere, Gage's voice chimed in, loud and flat: "We don't miss you." Then the call ended. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, as if I'd run a marathon on one lung. That was the first sign something was deeply wrong. Sure, maybe Barbara was stressed, but that was more than stress. It was pure malice. My stepson, who once seemed to idolize me, it was also an unrecognizable cruelty from him. Then, just as quickly as they'd appeared, they were gone, leaving me alone in a hospital bed to wonder how the people I loved most could say something so vile. By the time I got a hold of her again, almost 4 days later, she seemed to have settled on a new story. "Look, don't hold a grudge," she said airily, as if my injuries were trivial. "You've been out of commission for almost a week. Gage has had school stuff, the dishwasher is leaking, and, practically speaking, gas is $5 a gallon." She laughed. "Takes almost an hour to get to your hospital. We're busy here." Busy? Right. Considering she never showed up, I had plenty of time to stew on that word. Busy. It was easier for her to watch reality shows, meet up with friends, and keep up her social calendar than check on her husband who nearly passed. Days turned into weeks. I had multiple surgeries on my leg. I dreaded each one, not for the pain, but because each time I came out of anesthesia, I hoped I'd see Barbara by my side. Maybe this time she'd come to her senses, but she never did. When I finally got in touch with my sister Bernice, she said, "Everett, you need to face the facts." I drove by the house this morning and saw a black SUV parked in front. Barbara wasn't at work. Gage was still at school. "You think she's there alone?" My heart sank. "Also," Bernice went on, "I checked the joint account like you asked. A few $1,000s, it's just gone. Actually, a lot more than a few thousand." She hesitated. "More like 6 grand, transferred out in the last 2 weeks, plus a charge at a jewelry store." That was the first I'd heard about Silvio, though I only knew him by sightings, rumors, the possibility of some friend giving Barbara attention. I was so foggy from medication and battered from the aftermath of the accident that it took a while for it to sink in. My wife was probably cheating. She was also determined to drain our finances. And if her phone calls were any indication, she'd hoped I would die in that hospital so she could collect some insurance money without going through a painful divorce. But I survived. And that survival gave me time to think. A nurse named Tessa was the one bright spot in that dismal setting. She fed me extra pudding cups and sometimes sat during breaks, letting me unload the swirling anger in my mind. I never told her the full extent of the story, but she gently said, "You seem like you're planning something. If that's the case, do it safely. Don't risk your health. Give yourself time to recover." I nodded, not fully trusting my ability to hide how vengeful I felt. 2 months in the hospital is an eternity. Physical therapy turned my muscles to fire, but it also gave me a sense of purpose. Each day I got a little stronger, a little more mobile. I told the doctors I was signing out against medical advice. They argued I won. My sister picked me up, practically stuffing me into the back seat so my leg could remain extended. We left the hospital behind, all my bitterness and heartbreak packed into that car like extra baggage. "Where to?" Bernice asked. I gave her an address to a mid-range extended stay hotel across town. She stared. "You sure you don't want to go home?" "I am sure," I said. "Home isn't home anymore." She didn't press. When we got to the hotel, she helped me check in, carried my bag, fussed like a mother hen. I finally told her in a low voice, "Can you sneak into the house at some point? Get my laptop, a few clothes, personal documents. Wait until Barbara's at work or something." Bernice's eyes flashed with protective anger. "Absolutely." I was still in serious pain, hobbling with the walker, but the anger churning inside me gave me a strange energy. I started making phone calls, froze our joint credit cards, set up a new bank account in my name only. I couldn't yank out everything. I wanted to do this legally or at least somewhat, but I immediately moved half the funds from our checking into my private account, the half I was entitled to. The next step was to hire a lawyer. That took a few days, but I found a guy named Reggie, recommended by a friend. He specialized in divorces with complicated finances. He came to my hotel room. After I filled him in, he let out a long, slow whistle. "She told you to die?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "She's with this Silvio guy?" "That's the gist," I said. He nodded grimly. "I've seen some rough stuff, but that's a new one. Let's figure out your angles. House is in both your names, correct?" I explained that I bought it before we got married, but Barbara insisted on refinancing to include herself. So yes, jointly funded now. Reggie took notes. Then I added, "I want to empty it out while she's gone. She's planning a Nashville getaway soon, if I heard correctly." Reggie looked at me cautiously. "You realize that's going to escalate things in a serious way. Are you prepared?" "I've thought about it," I said, though I'd done nothing but think about it for weeks. "Prepared or not, it's what I want to do. I'm not leaving behind anything I bought. If the house is half mine and the possessions are half mine, I'm taking my half. I don't care if she comes home to an empty living room," he shrugged. "As long as everything you remove is either yours or considered part of an equitable division, we can do it by the book." That was exactly what I planned to do. Barbara's trip to Nashville was something I heard about from Gage's social media. He posted a selfie wearing some overpriced outfit captioned, "Going to Nashville for the weekend with Mom. Can't wait, the nerve." She hadn't come to see me in the hospital, but she sure could blow hundreds on a weekend away. This was the perfect chance to make my move. Bernice confirmed that Barbara and Gage would leave Friday morning, returning Sunday night. That gave me Saturday to handle everything. I made a booking with local movers and explained which items were to be taken. This included every single thing I'd personally purchased. The living room set, the dining table, my major electronics, my entire workshop tools, and even the dog, Curtis, who was legally microchipped under my name. Then half of the shared possessions, carefully documented with Reggie's help, so I didn't open myself up to theft allegations. Her vanity, craft supplies, and purely personal possessions were staying. The same for Gage's personal stuff, aside from the gaming console I'd bought him last Christmas. Saturday morning arrived. Bernice picked me up at the hotel at noon. I was using crutches at that point. We parked around the corner so no neighbors would see me and tip off Barbara. The moving truck arrived right on schedule. I limped inside, my heart pounding from the sense of intrusion, even though it was my own house. Or half mine, anyway. Walking through that front door was surreal. Down the hallway, everything looked neater than I remembered. Tidied, almost staged. I guess she wanted to impress Silvio or her other friends. Curtis, my golden retriever, rushed at me with an explosion of barks and wagging tail. If there was one speck of happiness in that entire ordeal, it was that dog leaping onto me, ignoring my crutches, desperate to shower me in dog kisses. He whined and spun in circles like he couldn't believe I was real. I gave him a hug, burying my face into his fur, inhaling that distinct dog smell. As messed up as everything was, at least Curtis missed me. The movers wasted no time. They started hauling the sofa, the coffee table, my desk, chairs, anything I'd flagged on the inventory list Reggie had helped me compile. I hopped from room to room, pointing out what needed to go and what stayed. My chest tightened when I passed by the bedroom. The bed I'd slept in with Barbara for 8 years was ours together, so that had to be split. We'd purchased it using a joint account equally. Fine. I took the frame. She could keep the mattress. Seemed petty, but I wasn't leaving behind anything I didn't have to. Let her figure out a new setup. Midway through, I peeked into Gage's room. I was half tempted to leave everything out of sentimental value. He was still a kid, even if he'd turned toxic. But I kept hearing that snide phone voice, "We don't miss you." That memory was still raw. Yet a part of me recognized a 16-year-old doesn't just come up with that on his own. Barbara was likely behind it. But you can't unhear words. I pointed out the console I bought him, plus the monitor I contributed. The bed, dresser, clothes, I left them. He'd have a place to sleep. I wasn't making him homeless, but he sure as hell wasn't going to keep a pricey gaming system purchased by me. Let him learn that actions have consequences. By 6 in the evening, the moving truck was loaded. The house, once filled with pictures, furniture, random clutter, now felt echoey, a skeleton of its former self. Really, between Barbara's possessions and Gage's personal items, there was still a decent amount left, but the essential living spaces were gutted. The living room was empty, aside from a lonely rug Barbara once claimed was an antique, but was actually from a discount store. The dining area was bare. In the garage, my entire workshop was gone, leaving behind only some battered shelves and old paint cans. Upstairs, I'd taken the entire master closet I'd been paying for over the years, my suits, my e-reader, my portion of the shoe racks. Barbara's clothes and makeup table were untouched, and of course, I took Curtis. "Is that everything?" one of the movers asked, sweating after multiple trips up and down. "Just one last bang," I replied. "Pack up all the dog food, it's mine. Receipts show I paid for it." That might have been overkill, but I didn't care. We were done. Bernice drove behind the truck the entire way to my new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom on the ground floor, perfect for my slow healing. Watching the movers unload in my new place triggered a pang of guilt. I wasn't used to acting so cold, so vengeful, but every time I second-guessed myself, I remembered that phone call. Die fast or heal quick. No hospital visits, thousands draining from our joint account. And worst of all, Barbara's getaways with Silvio. This wasn't an innocent misunderstanding. She'd effectively abandoned me, so I was done feeling sorry for her. We finished around 8 at night. Curtis wandered the apartment, sniffing corners and hallway nooks, tail wavering in confusion. I set up his dog bed near the living room window. He flopped down with a sigh. My sister stuck around until close to midnight, helping me open a few crucial boxes, plates, bedding, towels. Then she left me alone in this new reality. Sunday night, the text messages started rolling in. I ignored them at first. By the time I turned on my phone, it vibrated so intensely it nearly fell off the table. Barbara had left a stream of texts. "Where the hell is all our stuff? What did you do? Why is the house practically empty? You can't do this, Everett. It's illegal." I scrolled through them. No sign of remorse, worry for my health, or concern about how I was coping after the accident. Just complaints about objects. I put my phone away and tried to sleep. But I only got a couple hours before curiosity got the better of me. Bernice had sent me a video from her own doorbell camera. In it, Barbara stood on my old front lawn, screaming at the night, her voice reverberating across the quiet neighborhood. "He took everything. My husband robbed me like a thief in the night." She looked deranged, hair frizzy from travel, wearing a short, glittery dress that might have been perfect for partying in Nashville but looked absurd on a suburban lawn. The cherry on top, she shouted, "He even took the damn dog! That's my dog!" The dog she barely fed, the dog who cowered when she yelled, the dog I walked, bathed, vaccinated, and microchipped. I let out a humorless laugh, then turned off my phone again. If Barbara wanted to talk, she could go through Reggie. I needed rest. Monday came with an unexpected surprise. I was trudging around my apartment on crutches when there was a knock. I opened the door to see Gage standing there with a scowl. He wore headphones around his neck and glared at me like he was mad that he'd even made the trip. I blinked. "How'd you find me?" He shrugged. "GPS. Mom wrote down your address after she hired a PI or something. Listen," he hesitated. "I need the password for the console, the one you took from my room." I almost burst out laughing. "You're kidding, right?" "It's mine," he insisted. "You can't just do that. I need my games. Especially after all the bullshit you just pulled. Mom's freaking out. You can't expect me to live in that house with no fun." I gripped my crutches so I wouldn't lose my balance from anger. "Look around, Gage." I gestured at the stacked boxes behind me. "I just got out of the hospital, have a battered leg. Your mother never visited once, neither did you. You both told me you didn't care if I died. Now you show up to demand a password?" "Yeah, well, I said I don't miss you because Mom told me to. I don't have to explain, but whatever, give me the code. Or you can pay for me to replace it. I don't care." My blood pressure soared. "Replace it yourself. I'm not giving you 1 cent and you're not touching my console. Move on." He let out a scoffing laugh, as if it were inconceivable I wouldn't hand it over. "You're going to regret messing with my mom," he warned, then turned on his heel and stormed off. I closed the door, heart hammering. It It was horrifying to realize that the thoughtful kid I taught to fish and hammered nails with in a treehouse had transformed into this careless, entitled brat. At least that encounter gave me clarity. I no longer owed Gage anything. Barbara had twisted him into a smaller version of her manipulative self. 2 days later, I bumped into Silvio in the grocery parking lot, of all places. I locked eyes with him over the hood of my car as he walked out with a loaf of bread and some groceries. My mind flashed with images, him sneaking around my house, him probably in the bed I once shared with Barbara. My fists clenched, but he looked startled, adjusting the bag under his arm. "Everett, hey man," he said, halting a few feet away. "I heard about your accident. You doing okay?" His faux concern made me see red. I hobbled toward him, each step jarring my knee. I saw fear flicker in his eyes. My hand shot out. Without thinking, I gave him a stinging slap across the face. Not a punch. It was more insulting than that, the crack audible in the quiet lot. He stumbled back, nearly dropping his groceries, eyes wide like a scolded child. "You come near me again," I said, my voice low. "I'll do worse. You think I don't know what you did with my wife? Quit the fake sympathy." He pressed a hand to his cheek, stammering, "Chill, man, it's not—" I advanced another step. "Get out of here. Go. Now!" People were staring from across the parking lot. Silvio mumbled something and hurried off, half limping with his groceries. I was trembling, adrenaline surging, but also feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. Maybe that made me a villain. Maybe I'd stooped to his level. All I knew was I felt a tiny measure of relief from months of pent-up rage. That night, Barbara called from yet another random number, probably a friend's phone. I recognized her voice instantly. "You slapped Silvio in public?" she shrieked. "Just because I cheated doesn't give you a free pass to assault my friend. He's threatening to press charges." I let out a laugh. "He can press whatever he wants," I said. "Tell him to try me. I'll share every message, every bank statement, every detail of your affair. Might not help him in court, but will sure as hell embarrass him." She huffed. "You're evil. You think you're so high and mighty. I've never seen this side of you." "That's because I'm done letting you walk all over me, Barbara." She paused, then snapped, "You're going to be sorry for this." She hung up. A week later, I heard from Reggie that Barbara had refused to sign the initial divorce papers unless I paid her a lump sum for emotional distress. We called an emergency meeting. In Reggie's office, I sat on a small couch while Barbara faced me from across a coffee table. She wore a fancy blouse I'd never seen, which only made me think of the money she'd siphoned out of our account. She stared daggers, arms folded rigidly. Reggie did most of the talking. "Barbara, we have evidence of your extramarital affair, along with text and phone call logs that show you neglected Everett during a significant medical crisis. If this matter goes in front of a judge, you risk losing more than you gain." Barbara's lips tightened into a sneer. "He took our furniture," she said. "He's living large in whatever hole in the wall he found, leaving me with an empty house. He slapped Silvio. Look at him, he's violent. He shoved me last year too." She was lying, picking random accusations to paint me as the aggressor. "Got any proof?" Reggie asked, eyes narrowing. "'Cause I've got reams of phone calls and bank statements. Also an entire hospital staff who'd testify you never visited once. Don't forget your recorded phone call to him. Die fast or heal quick." "That's your voice, correct?" She flushed, looking at me with pure hatred. "We'll see about that. I have a teenage son. I deserve spousal support, child support." "Child support for a kid that isn't mine?" I said calmly, though my heart hammered. "You never even let me adopt him legally, remember?" She glowered. Reggie gently reminded her that Gage's biological father had partial financial responsibility, not me. That was the entire reason I hadn't been able to adopt him in the first place. So if Barbara wanted child support, she needed to chase down Gage's real dad. That left her stumped. Several hours of back-and-forth arguments ended with Reggie sliding over revised divorce papers. She glared at them, chest heaving, then scribbled her name. We were set for a final hearing in about a month, but that signature was a huge step. Leaving Reggie's office, I grinned. That was a petty, ugly grin, but I didn't care. Barbara was forced to deal with the realities she'd tried to avoid. On my way out, she hissed, "You'll pay for that stunt in the parking lot. Silvio won't let it go. He's humiliated." I shrugged. "He humiliated himself sneaking into my bed with you." Sure enough, the next weekend, I received an envelope from some local attorney claiming Silvio had grounds for a suit. Reggie said it was hot air. Still, it added tension, and I spent a few sleepless nights waiting for a legal bomb to drop. But then it all fizzled. Maybe Silvio realized the public embarrassment wasn't worth a single slap. 2 weeks passed, my routine settled, daily physical therapy, half days at a desk job I'd been reassigned to while I recovered, and evenings sorting boxes in my new apartment. Over that time, I regained enough strength to ditch the crutches. At moments, a wave of guilt would strike, remembering the younger me, who had promised to love Barbara in sickness and in health. Then I'd recall how she twisted those vows, praying for me to just die fast. She must have found cunning ways to fund her lifestyle because I saw her social media posts, fancy lunches, mini shopping sprees. She'd gleaned some money from the joint account before I froze it. Maybe she tried to open new lines of credit. Who knows? What I did know was that she was heading to Nashville again, yet another weekend trip. Bernice texted me the plan. Barbara's leaving with Gage on Friday morning for a cheating party, as I privately thought of it, though who knows her real motivation. That signaled a chance to finalize the last wave of possessions. She still had a few items that were half mine. Some old portraits we'd commissioned, some expensive hardware in my old workshop that had been tucked away, plus a couple of electronics. I arranged to meet a small moving crew on Saturday. Saturday morning, I parked out front of my old home. The perfect suburban lawn that I used to mow every Sunday was uncut and scraggly. Barbara had posted some friend's car in the driveway, so maybe Silvio was back, or it was someone else altogether. But that morning, no one seemed to be inside. I had a key, so I let myself in. My stomach knotted as I walked straight to the garage. I carefully removed exactly what was mine. Tucked behind a workbench was a brand new leaf blower I'd bought for that fall. I took it, no regrets. She'd left me no choice. I was packing the last extension cord into the back of the truck when I heard a car door slam. I turned and spotted Barbara storming up the driveway, shoulder bag flung around her. She wore a short skirt and had giant sunglasses perched on her head. Fear and fury slammed into me. I thought she wasn't coming back till Sunday. "What in the hell are you doing?" she yelled, voice echoing. "You're not supposed to be here! This is my house, you piece of—" She lunged. I was so startled I stepped back, forgetting my leg was still sensitive. She grabbed the collar of my shirt, nails raking across my neck. "You think you can keep doing this to me? Taking what's mine?" I shoved her off, my palm on her shoulder, more to protect myself than anything. But in my push, she lost her footing. Her heels skidded on a small patch of wet pavement by the backyard pool area. She stumbled backward with a startled yelp and toppled into the water. Splash! She disappeared beneath the surface. For a moment, I stared, stunned, watching the ripples. Then she surfaced, sputtering, mascara streaking. "You bastard!" she shrilled. "You did that on purpose." I clenched my fists. My shirt collar was still askew from her grip, and sweat trickled down my temple. "You attacked me first, Barbara. I told you everything I'm taking is legally mine. You signed those papers!" Her eyes spat venom as she floundered in the shallow end. I noticed a bruise on my forearm that must have come from her nails, a faint stinging. "I'll call the cops," she threatened, voice shaking. "I'll say you assaulted me, that you tried to end me." "Good luck. I've got a mover as a witness," I said, jerking my thumb at the stunned guy standing behind the truck. He wore an expression that clearly said he wanted to be anywhere but there. Barbara waded to the ladder, water pouring off her. She hoisted herself out, dripping, shivering, even though the sun was hot. "Mark my words," she hissed. "You'll regret humiliating me." She was nearly panting with fury, her face contorted. If I hadn't known better, I'd say she might actually attempt to murder me right then. Instead, she stomped off, cursing under her breath. She left watery footprints along the pool deck, across the grass, then climbed into her car and roared away, presumably to find a phone so she could keep painting me as the villain. The mover cleared his throat awkwardly. "So, do we finish loading?" "Yes," I said. "We finish. Then we get out of here." Within an hour, everything was packed. I took one last look at the house that used to be my home. The front door was wide open because Barbara had left in too much of a rage to lock anything. The living room was already half empty, and now the garage was stripped. My final piece of that place was gone. Though my anger simmered, a melancholy feeling nestled beside it. So many years, so many illusions. I shut the door, locked it, and turned over my key to the mover, who gave it back to me with a confused look. I realized it was muscle memory from the old days when I still cared about neatness and courtesy. That night, I returned to my apartment, laid everything out, and tried to watch some late-night movie. But my mind wouldn't settle. All I pictured was Barbara, flailing in the water, face twisted with betrayal, as if I'd snatched away the life she'd grown accustomed to. My phone blew up again with texts. This time, I scrolled through, actually reading them. "You worthless jerk, you're going to pay for humiliating me. My nails are broken. You threw me in a pool and ruined my phone. Silvio says you're an animal. I wish you had died in that hospital." On and on it went. I blocked her number. I'd let Reggie handle it. 4 days after that fiasco, I was at my job, trying my best to focus on the slow transition back to normal tasks, when Bernice sent me a cryptic text. "Heads up, Gage is teaming up with your wife. They think you're paying for his college. Might try to corner you." I swore under my breath. Gage had always expected I'd foot the bill for his future. I used to be okay with that, back when I thought we had a real family. Now, not a chance. Sure enough, that evening, I was returning from the grocery store, arms full of bags, when a voice behind me barked, "Hey, old man, open up." I almost dropped my keys. I turned to see Gage glaring at me, leaning against the stairwell rail outside my apartment. His posture reeked of teenage bravado. "How'd you get in the building?" I demanded. "Door was open," he lied. I cursed under my breath, suspecting he might have followed another tenant inside. He marched up, chin jutted out. "Mom said you canceled the college fund. You basically ruined my future. She told me you're refusing to pay a dime?" I let out a shaky breath, fighting the urge to push him away. "You're not my responsibility, Gage. Not anymore. I tried to be your stepdad, and you treated me like garbage. You told me to die. Told me you didn't miss me. Well, guess what? That means I owe you nothing." He blew out a furious laugh and stepped closer until we were almost nose to nose. "Bullshit. You promised me you'd help with college. You can't just back out." "I can, and I have." I tried to keep calm, but anger rolled through me. "Ask your blood father or your mother. Or do what everyone else does. Get a job, apply for loans, scholarships." He flung his arms wide. "You listening to yourself, old man? Do you know who you're messing with? I'll make your life hell if you don't give me that money." Those words triggered something cold in me. I stepped forward, keeping my voice low, but menacing. "Get the hell off my porch, Gage, right now." His face twitched with fury. "You think I'm scared of you? You already robbed us blind. You made Mom look like a fool. You can't just toss me aside." "I said leave." He lunged past me, trying to get into my apartment. I grabbed his shoulder, spun him around, and used my newly stronger leg to shove him back. He stumbled into the hallway wall, cursing. "You know what? You'll regret this," he thundered. Then, in a move so fast I barely saw it, he stooped, grabbed a loose brick from a maintenance cart in the corridor. Someone must have been repairing a wall, and hurled it at my parked sedan outside the window. It sailed in a high arc before crashing through the windshield with a tremendous shatter. Glass fragments sprayed across the front seat. My heart pounded. "What the? Are you insane?" I yelled, dropping my groceries. "Pay for my college, or next time it's your face," he snarled. "You hearing me, a hole?" Rage engulfed me. For a split second, I wanted to tackle him, but I forced myself to step back. Instead, I pulled out my phone, dialed the police. "I'm reporting vandalism, trespassing, and a violent threat," I said, eyes locked on Gage. My voice shook. "Yeah, 211 East Waterside, Building B. Car just got its windshield smashed." "You can't be serious," Gage stammered, color draining from his face. "You call the cops on your own stepson? You gave up the right to call me stepfather the day you told me to die. Now get the fuck out or wait for them to arrest you." He stood there, realizing I was dead serious. At that moment, an older resident stepped out from a neighboring unit, taking in the scene. Me on the phone, Gage glaring, the smashed car window visible in the parking lot. The cops arrived with sirens low about 10 minutes later. Gage hovered near the stairwell, probably hoping I'd calm down. But my mind was set. Enough was enough. 2 officers got out, took statements, snapped pictures of the shattered windshield, noted the brick inside the car. Gage tried to spin it as an accident, some bizarre story that he'd tripped. But we had a hallway security camera. They replayed the footage, which showed him hurling the brick with clear, malicious intent. A wave of cold satisfaction washed through me as I saw the officers handcuff him. He spat in my direction, screaming about how I was betraying him. I just stood silent, locked in a numb acceptance that this was how it had to be. "You'll pay for this, Everett! You can't do this to me!" he screamed as they escorted him out. "I'll ruin you!" I said nothing. One of the officers gave me a curt nod, then followed the other as they led Gage away. The hallway fell silent, except for my own ragged breathing. After they left, I trudged down to my car, carefully surveying the damage. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks. My driver's side door had fresh key scratches scoured into the paint. Probably Gage's sad attempt at revenge. I called a towing service, explained the situation. By the time they arrived, I was exhausted, standing there with groceries spilled in my apartment hallway and a battered sense of reality. Gone was the carefree father figure I'd once tried to be. I called Bernice. "He's been arrested," I said, voice hoarse. "He attacked my car with a brick." "Jesus," she whispered. "That kid has lost it. You want me to come over?" "Not tonight," I said. "I've got insurance stuff, and I need to call Reggie." "Thanks, though," she sighed. "You did the right thing. Take pictures of everything. Keep it documented." I hung up, took a few deep breaths, and cleaned up the groceries. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, probably one of Barbara's. "You'll burn for this," it said. "I hope you're happy." Ironically, I was the calmest I'd been in weeks. I was done with letting them manipulate me. Barbara and Gage had both lit the match on this war, and I refused to be their victim any longer. 3 days passed. Reggie confirmed Gage would likely face charges of trespassing and property damage. The cost of the windshield, plus the door scratches, would be on him. Barbara made a stink about how Gage was a minor, but he was 16, old enough to know better. The authorities took it seriously, though they offered him a diversion program if he complied with fines. I half expected Barbara to swoop in with threats or tears. Instead, I heard from Bernice that Barbara tried to bail him out, but funds were short and no one wanted to co-sign. She ended up calling her parents, who apparently were furious at Gage's actions, and at me, no doubt. But I didn't budge. On Friday morning, I decided to finalize some paperwork with Reggie for the upcoming final hearing. The official divorce date loomed, and I intended to tie up every last loose end. While at Reggie's office, we learned Gage was mandated to pay restitution fines for my damaged car, likely a few $1,000s. If he couldn't pay, Barbara would have to cough it up. Given her precarious finances, that was a problem for them, not me. I left Reggie's office feeling a strange mix of triumph and emptiness. After all the drama, this was the resolution. Gage fined, me free from any obligations, Barbara cornered. My phone vibrated. Another message from some unknown number. "This is on you. I hope your new life is worth the cost." I pocketed my phone without responding.